This is TWiT.
Now, you promised us at the beginning of the show a little bit of a different whiskey segment.
I had a whiskey experience this week, friends. Like it doesn't happen all that often, but it was sort of a friend of a friend moment that I was out for dinner and he said, I really need you to meet my friend Josh. And then Josh said, come meet me at Casa de Vinos, which is a store in Melbourne, which I highly recommend. That while it's even called the House of Wine because they used to do custom bottlings of wine, the proprietor Jose has really switched to a focus on whiskey and rum and tequila and spirits.
This looks super cool.
It's a nice place and like a place you'd like to hang out at. It was very enjoyable. And what's funny is I came in, met Josh for the first time. We chatted for a bit. We were talking to the lady behind the counter, and I'm like, well, I do this whiskey bit, so I'm looking for a whiskey for this week. And Jose literally came from upstairs down and said, what is this voice I'm hearing? This giant radio voice. And then why don't you come back upstairs with me? And we went into his private collection. And started digging. He's a proper collector of whiskey, which is to say it's all the different editions. So he had 30 or 40 years worth of different Lefroys. And then this was the bottling in Japan. This is the bottling from this thing. This is when the licensing rules didn't allow for 750 mils. So these are 700s. There was a limit of a maximum of a liter. So this was 3 editions, each 333 milliliters, like that kind of madness, essentially. And it's always a challenge when you have someone who's really interested in whiskey sort of looking at your collection. It's like, what can I give you you've never had or that there's a new experience? And Jose pulled one on me I've never experienced before. I literally had to research it afterwards. And it was actually bad whiskey.
Oh!
but bad whiskey from good distilleries.
Oh, okay.
So, and the ultimate example of this was it was a Scottish whiskey, a Glengarrick 21. And he says, try this. Gives me just a half an ounce pour, a little tiny pour, and Josh got one too. And I smell it, and it smells like dish soap.
And wasn't this maybe? Maybe it was the Whisky Abbey?
Yeah, no, this is later in the story. But
okay.
When I taste it, it's literally like having my mouth washed out by lavender soap. It was unbelievable how bad it was. It was just shocking. And now I've gone on to read about this issue called saponification, which
it turned into soap.
It did. And the issue here is, and it exists in all forms of whiskey, is when you cut the whiskey with water before bottling. So it never happens with cask strength whiskeys.
Oh, interesting.
But there is an issue where if you dilute with water quickly and then immediately bottle, the way the phenols break down and against the ionization of the water can end up making soapy compounds that will ruin the batch.
Wow.
Like as a whole. And so some of the pieces I've read have said that if you're reducing from you're coming out of the barrel at 55, 57%, you're going to go down to 43. It should take a month of adding water slowly and letting it establish and really arguably outgassing, like releasing certain compounds before you put it in bottles. But if you're in a hurry, and this was his argument, this was an old edition of 21 bottled in the 1990s, and they were in a rush and they cut it hard, a lot of water, bottled it and ruined the whole batch.
Did he know ahead of time that it was going to be saponified?
No.
Oh
no! And again, he bought it long ago, but it's this, and it's one of these areas that the whiskey professionals don't want to talk about. They've ruined whiskey because it doesn't happen immediately. It didn't taste soapy when they put it in the bottle.
Right.
It's actually over time in the bottle, and so there's 101 excuses about it was mishandled. It was your dirty glasses, like da 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 da. And now, bit by bit, the research come out that said this is kind of a big deal. And it doesn't happen anymore because I think they've now learned.
Yeah.
You add water very slowly. There's also an argument for what's the right amount of water anyway. Like, why are you going to 43? And sometimes it's a legal requirement. Like, I can't sell in this country if it's more than that. But most of the time, you're just trying to get to a nice drinking range and high enough that it doesn't flocculate, right, in ice because he didn't want a chill filter. And so you got to pick a number and take your time on it. Wow. Anyway, I mean, 100% of a digression. But while we were on there, I'm like, no, I'm here for Australian whiskey, which you've got an amazing collection of. And I'd done Hellier the week before for all of us here, and looked at a lot of different whiskeys, some really neat ones that I still want to get to, like Lark and so forth. A ton of really good Tasmanian whiskeys. But the one I selected was this one here, the Highwayman. And specifically their Whisky Abbey 2024 edition. So Whisky Abbey is an annual whiskey party, essentially celebration at an abbey outside of Melbourne. And they've invited me for the next one, in fact, which is in November. So I'm tempted to come down and do that. But this particular whiskey, the Highwayman, and my goodness, it's so dark. It is made by a guy named Dan Woolley. So Dan Woolley's a bit of a legend down in Australia as a guy who worked in the whiskey biz for years and years in lots of different roles. But his most famous role is as a brand ambassador for Suntory. And so Suntory owning all kinds of whiskeys all over the place, like Maker's Mark and Lefroy and a bunch of others. He retired in 2019, having built up this huge array of relationships to make his own expressions of whiskey. And in fact, since 2019, he's made 50. And this is one of them specifically made for the Whisky Abbey event last year. So the way he has all these different ideas about whiskey because he's tried so many and been so heavily immersed that what he does is, pick a particular approach to the grain. He typically works with a particular distillery, the Lord Byron Distillery, which is in New South Wales, about an hour's drive south of Gold Coast, which mostly makes gins and rums, but they got all of the right equipment. And so he kind of comes there and he'll literally make a batch, a single barrel run, 200 bottles. They tend to be a bit pricey because they're small. This particular version is straight up barley from Australia, so very localized because it was for Whisky Abbey. But then it's all about what did he do with the cask. And this particular time, he chose to go all sherry. So he did initial casking in a PX cask, in a Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, and then did it for a couple of years, and then did a finishing step, a final year in Oloroso. And then bottled it about 55%. There's only a 500 ml bottle. This is fairly common in Australia because it's pricey stuff.
It's a half liter.
Yeah, so a half liter instead of a 3/4 liter,
right? For
250 Australian, so about 160 American.
If you could get it, but I see it's out of stock. So
is it out of stock already? It was when I was writing this up yesterday. They still had some.
Wow!
So it's just sold out. Yeah. So just a huge sherry nose, like hello. And for what's probably only a 3-year-old whiskey,
look how dark,
right? That's all sherry in that.
Oh, I bet it's delicious, though.
Oh, man. And this is the magic of Dan Woolley. And I hope I someday meet this fellow because clearly he's very serious about what he's doing. For a young cask strength, like no flare, no burn on the nose, not at all. And when you tasted it, it's all that fruit and leather that comes from that sherry taste, and then just a lot of heat going down. Like it may be 7 a.m, but I'm all warm and fuzzy. What a fantastic whiskey. And this is what we've always wanted from whiskey, and what Dan's really perfecting is, hey, I'm going to get you to taste this thing, and you're never, ever going to have it again. There's no
I love this guy, man. I got to go to Melbourne. That's awesome.
And in 5 years, 50 different whiskeys.
Wow.
And some peated, some not, all these different barrel options, but just making one-offs. And that's all he does. So, like I said,
he does master classes, it looks like. So you could go there and do a tasting session.
We have the new grandchild, and one of the conversations was, can we, while the baby's still highly portable, can we come to New Zealand and Australia and visit all the family and so forth? And they asked if I would come with, and now I'm like, well, we're talking about November. Gee,
maybe
isn't that when Whisky Abbey is? So,
Oh, I want to go down with you for my birthday. That sounds awesome.
So much fun. And in some ways, I feel like these 500 mils is perfect.
Yeah.
Because it's a smaller bottle.
Yeah,
so it is just
fine.
Part of that.
It makes
tasting.
it precious. It makes it something special.
Yeah, and just a sort of one-time experience. So, and I'm not taking this home. I'm going to finish this with my friends at the NDC conference here today and tomorrow before I have to fly out.
Is that what you're doing in Melbourne? What's the MVC conference?
This is the tech conference that I do all over the world. They've got their main shows in Oslo. We've done a London one. We've done London and Copenhagen, Porto, Portugal, and this year.
Paul, how do we get on the Richard Campbell gravy train? That's what I want to know. Or should I say the whiskey train?
I think we just throw it like live podcast. something. I don't know.
Surely they want a live podcast there.
Pretty sure I've made that pitch to you a couple of times, Leo, but can't seem to pry you out of that studio.
We're stuck here.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Well, it sounds like you're there for a very good time, and I'm so glad you are.
We've been having a great time. My main talk is today, later on after doing this.
I hope you get a nap.
I'm doing that. I went to bed early. I'm doing my Future of Energy talk, but adapted to the state of Victoria. So I've reviewed all the government documentations on power generation here. And so I'm going to take the folks through. Here's how your state is currently making energy and what it's going to look like in the next 10 years.
See, that's great. Wouldn't you like to have Richard at your next event? Wow. How cool is that?